Get your latest money news from the eNCA Money Desk with Rupiwa Madzena. Hi, Rupiwa, and you've got a very special guest. Really looking forward to this one.
No, absolutely. We've got the newly appointed acting DG, Mr. Ismail Momoniat, who's been appointed as acting Director General of the National Treasury. Now, his appointment follows the departure of Dondo Mogajane, who held the position for 5 years. Momoniat has worked in Treasury for 27 years and has previously served as a Deputy Director General. He joins me now for a discussion, all things to do with South Africa and her health. Thank you very much for your time this evening, Acting DG. Now, the former DG once stated that the challenges at municipalities are way too many and National Treasury just can't cope. So you've got a very tough task ahead of you. And as you continue from where he left off, what are you going to be prioritizing?
Hi, no, thank you. Look, I don't know what all the excitement is. It's merely an acting appointment for a few months, I guess, until a new DG is appointed. And I've told the minister he must appoint a permanent DG as soon as possible. I'm merely here to support the minister and the government to ease in the entry of a new DG. So that's the first issue. And in terms of policy, it doesn't change just because there's a new acting DG. There's continuity in the Treasury. And yes, like you've outlined, the challenges are still there. I used to work, when I first became a TDG, it used to be an intergovernmental relation. So I used to work with provinces and municipalities. And yes, the problem has gotten far worse than the early years of the new democracy when we had to establish the foundation to implement the new constitution. So it is a difficult challenge, and I think the DG Dondo Mogajane did, I think, outline some of the challenges, and I fully agree with him. But essentially, it's the politics that's the problem that needs to be sorted out, that's behind some of the problems that you see both at municipalities and under state capture.
Absolutely. Those issues at those levels, including the malfeasance that you've alluded to, have had an impact on the country's economic situation, which is of great concern. So we did see GDP increasing, but our economy is just not a jobs-creating and a poverty-alleviating economy. I mean, how do we get out of this trap?
Well, I think that's the big challenge that we face, and I think essentially due to state capture after 2009, that we've been caught in a sense in a low growth trap. And how we break out of that trap is really the challenge. We've got to firstly make sure that, we start spending towards sectors that will promote growth in the sense of, let's say, something like infrastructure, rather than on personnel expenditure. So those are the challenges that we have. And certainly the Treasury has been working for a long period. You've got Operation Burundlela, where we're trying to deal with some of the structural problems facing the economy and to resolve those. And I would just say we need to implement them with speed if we really want to get on a higher growth trajectory and create more jobs. And, I do think there's opportunities. I mean, if you look at climate change, yes, we all have to mitigate and adapt to climate change, but it provides opportunities. And I think moving towards a greener economy, investing towards it, does provide us with the possibility of going on a different growth path for the future.
No, absolutely. And just on that greener economy that you've just spoken about and the opportunities that it could create for South Africa as a whole, do you find that the resources and the political will are there to ensure that we are making the transition that will benefit the entire country?
we have to create a climate. I think the political will be there, but it's important to be able to win people over. On the one hand, make everybody understand the risks that we face of not acting. And I think if you look at the recent KZN floods, I think it's a very good example of what happens. And the point is that we need to take, we're going to have many more of those types of disasters, and we need to be able to not just develop an agile response to such disasters, but to see how can we, mitigate those disasters. How can we prevent or reduce the scope for damage? So those are the types of bold steps we have to take now to prevent future damage.
On that topic of the floods, acting DG, various stakeholders have been at pains to say that the situation in KZN is dire. And yet we heard from National Treasury today saying that it still has not received any properly supported requests from provincial and municipal governments in that province for the 1 billion rand that has been made available to deal with some of the issues there.
Yes, look, I haven't been working in that area. I've been working on tax and financial sector policy issues up to today when I was appointed acting DG. But yes, the issue is when you have a disaster, it's one thing to go out and make statements. It's another to actually make sure that you put in place the systems and that the systems are working, and, that to the extent that specific assistance is required, that it's done in writing. And I'm not talking of long proposals. I'm saying, you can't just deal with these things verbally. So yes, one needs to get proper considered requests in writing so that we can action and act quickly.
Let's talk about corruption now, acting DG, fighting corruption, including procurement reform. This is arguably one of the main components of the lackluster economic growth and poverty that we see in the country at the moment. How do you approach this beast of an issue with your team?
Look, I have been focusing in the Treasury on trying to take steps to prevent corruption and act on corruption. And I think that, I really look forward to the final set of proposals that the Dondo Commission will be delivering mid-month. And already, if you look at the documents that they've already produced on procurement, on Transnet, on Eskom, I think there's a wealth of information and trends that we can pick up. And you are correct. One of the key areas is to fix up our procurement system so that it clearly gets us value for money and it's not stolen. And so I think the Treasury is geared up to implement the proposals as soon as we get the final reports. We're already doing a lot of work on as I said, on the reports that have already been published. And then we've got to complete the findings of both the Mpati and the Nugent Commission. So I think we already have a wealth of proposals to work on, and they relate to getting good governance, how boards are appointed, how people are appointed, getting the right skills in the right place. Some of these proposals, frankly, are not rocket science. They're pretty obvious, but somehow we lost course after 2009. And there were a lot of clearly crony appointment processes, people linked to the Guptas, and so on. So we need to take steps to prevent that type of abuse that we saw by getting better accountability systems. And I would say that, looking at the role of civil society and in monitoring both how public servants like myself, political leaders, how they, look at their actions and really ensure that we are all doing what we're supposed to do.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Ismail Momoniat, who is the newly appointed Acting Director General at National Treasury. Thank you very much for your time, and we wish you the very best of luck over the next few months as you hold the fort until a permanent decision on a Director General is made.